And we are live, and we're back. All right, so yeah, we were here just a minute ago. We're back again.
The magic of the internet.
Yes. Yeah, the 20 seconds of downtime, basically. So today we are joined by Robert McCollum. I hope I'm saying that correct.
You are.
Okay, perfect, yeah.
Although I go by Rob. You can call me Rob.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Robert is officially on all the credits, so you have to say that.
Yeah. I like to do my research going into these, so I'm a little bit prepared. You know, I've seen a couple of your other interviews. I am adept with quite a few of your roles. But I did want to just, say hi and, if you want to introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm Rob. I make voices for lots of things, including a whole lot of anime. One of your questions, I was looking ahead at the questions, and you said 26 years, and I'm like, oh, yeah. It has been that long. It's been a really long time.
I was looking at all your roles, and it was like since 98, I think.
98, I think, was the first one. Yeah. There's some debate over what the very first one, but I think it was probably a small Dragon Ball. It was the first one.
Cool.
Yep, that's what I noticed too.
But I think there was some uncredited before that, because that was back in the wild and crazy days where paperwork was not necessarily anybody at Funimation's strong point. So there may have been more before that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that you just probably just don't remember. But like,
or there weren't
your voice is so distinct.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your voice is so distinct. So I'm sure, like, if anybody were to go back, we'd be like, "Hey, that's Rob."
Or else I just have such a varied ability to change my voice. That's what I would like to be. Because I think about those things, I'm like, oh yeah, that was a totally different character. And then I go back 20 years later, listen to it and go, no, that pretty much just still sounds like me.
Well, I was rewatching Psychopass, and you play Kogami, which is one of my favorite characters. I absolutely adore him. And you kind of come off as like very confident in yourself, and I do kind of like that, and kind of like cool as a cucumber, like in the first kind of like 12 episodes.
Oh yeah, he never yells, even when things are blowing up and people are shooting at him. He's like, "Go over there, I got this."
Yep. And then we switch over to Reiner in like season 4, where he's kind of like a shell of his former self.
Yeah, he's
and
a broken,
very down
man.
in the dumps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Beautiful boy, beautiful sad Reiner. He had such a rough go.
I know.
I don't want to give spoilers away, but he does make it through season 4. I'm not saying how it ends up, but
yeah.
I mean, most people have seen it before, right?
Yeah, I mean,
here's
we have questions pertaining to spoilers.
If any of us are going to do spoilers, we'll do this beforehand.
Yes.
And then we'll do this again when you can take them off. So you can just turn down the sound.
Sounds good. Well, this would not be a spoiler, but I am really curious because this was like the number one thing that I wanted to get into. Have you even heard anything about the quote-unquote new Attack on Titan project, The Last Attack?
Well, that they're supposedly going to put the finale, whether they consider that 3 or 4 episodes, we're not sure yet, into one project and put it in theaters, which is awesome if that is what's happening. We haven't heard anything yet. We don't know if we're going to like re-record, if they're going to do any new animation to connect those 3 or just re-edit it. So we know nothing on it. It'd be super cool to get to see that in the theater. So I hope that all is going forward. But again, the voice actor, the English dub voice actor is like the last to know any of these things. Like you guys will know fully 2 weeks before I know anything.
Wow.
Before we move on, I want to go back to Cam's Psychopass. Have you seen Providence, the new movie?
I have not. I've only seen season 1.
So I will tell you, people were somewhat disappointed with season 2. Not with the performances, but with the storyline. It veers off a little bit. It changes. Season 3 also different. Another OVA movie. The new movie Providence that just came out, it was in theaters earlier this year for like 5 minutes, but it was actually in movie theaters. Feels like the sequel to season 1 that everybody wanted. So if you like season 1, you will love Psychopass Providence.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, okay. It's really good and was really cool to get to go see that on a big screen, which is the only time I've gotten to do that. So that's why I'm really hopeful that the Attack on Titan does in fact happen, because that'd be super cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm skeptical whether they'll be playing it in any theaters near where I live. I don't live in like a big city area, but I'm hoping it does because I would like to see
You
it in
gotta
theaters if
lobby
I
for it.
can.
You gotta email the theater and be like, hey, I'll come with
Mhm.
20 people. What is happening with my hair right now? I'm looking like Tintin. Nobody remembers Tintin, but I feel like that's what I look like.
I think you look a lot
I'm
better
just
than me.
gonna
I don't know
spike it all
why.
up.
My light just looks weird. I've never seen my light look like this on my camera. I just look so, I don't know, bleached. It's so weird.
I also just like you're fully rocking it in the bed, not even hiding that fact. Like, nope, that's what I'm doing. No,
Yeah, I mean,
it
that's
just
my
lives in the
setup.
bed. Let's
Yeah.
deal with it. That's the world.
He'll be
Yep.
like laying down in the bed too.
Later
Yeah,
reclining.
see,
Yeah.
he doesn't
So
have
you
to
have like
stream.
visually
Okay.
merchandise stuffed animals behind you on yours. Like yours is prepped for display, but
Yep.
Mine's just my basement. I mean, I just got like the boxes of all my recording equipment right behind
see,
me.
but you could just lie. You don't have your camera on. You could be like, I'm on a rooftop. I'm overlooking Santa Monica on a rooftop right now in a hot tub with 2 martinis. No one would know.
You know,
I know,
honestly,
man.
that's a podcast idea. I gotta make that happen sometime.
I love
I'm
it.
Yeah.
down.
Oh, I also wanted to ask. I am a Texan. I live in Texas, and
Woo!
so do you still like live in Texas, or
I
are you
do.
like?
I do.
Okay.
And so many of us, maybe people you've interviewed, but so many English dub actors live in Texas because this is where
Yes, I noticed
Crunchyroll came.
that.
Yeah, well, Sentai is also in Houston, and they do a ton. And there's other companies, but Funimation was the biggest name in the dub world for a lot of time. They are now merged and together with Crunchyroll, and they are based in Dallas, Texas. So
Oh,
anyone new coming in is in Texas, and then if there are people with existing roles that have moved on to LA or other places, they will do some, they have a remote studio in LA, but for pretty much everybody else, they want you here in the studio where they can control all of the elements and all of the sound. So
Oh.
people are like, oh, why do so many voice actors live in Dallas? And it's like, no. Crunchyroll is here, so they just use the actors that were already here. Like a lot of it, especially in the early days, we didn't come here to do anime. We were already here, and anime came to us because
Oh,
Funimation
wow.
just decided to come here. And for years, nobody knew what it was. We were having to explain to people. That is very different now. It is very mainstream. I don't have to explain to anybody what anime is. But in the early days, no one understood what this was that we were doing.
Wow, yeah, that's really cool. I had no idea that like the Funimation studio was like in Dallas. I live like in the Fort Worth area, so yeah, not that far off.
Yeah, there's a lot of the dub actors you'll see if you look at there. They live in Arlington, they live in Fort Worth, they live in all of the northern land of the Capels and Flower Mounds and things that non-Dallas people have no idea what I'm talking about. So this just got
Yeah.
super exciting for all of you. But yeah, Dallas and Fort Worth is kind of like one big city with a million subdivisions all in between that are kind of connected. And there's no real way to know when one ends and one begins. But I live in actual Dallas, real Dallas.
So actually,
Yeah,
you
the
said
actual
something I'm
city.
curious about now. Because some of the other voice actors we've talked to, they basically record from their house and then they send it where they send it. But since you live near the actual Crunchyroll headquarters and stuff, and you mentioned the recording booths, do you go when you do your recordings usually?
Yes.
Are you in those buildings?
So only for COVID were we allowed to do it from home. But now, since that is ended to whatever extent that it is ended, they are very adamant that they want everybody in the same studio, in the same booth, on the same microphone, so that it's not so much of an engineering. So while I did some of it from that closet right there, that's what kept me alive during COVID. Because for a while, Crunchyroll was bought by Sony just before COVID happened, and for I think about 8 months, Crunchyroll was the only division of Sony producing any content at all. The only new content coming out of Sony anywhere was Crunchyroll. That may be false. That's what I was told. Unconfirmed.
Oh.
But yeah, now it is all in studio. You go in. Now you don't get to work with the other actors. You're still working by yourself in the booth with the director and the engineer. We got to go in one at a time. So sometimes you get to see people, but like in the lobby, in the snack room when you're having a coffee before your session. but everyone thinks we all know each other. And there are several actors that I've been in shows with for 10 years running that I have never met and meet for the first time when I go to an anime con. And we're like doing a panel together. It was like, how long have you guys known each other? And we're like, 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, I saw you on your Instagram. You met with the voice actor who plays Bertold.
Yes, and I've known David for a long time. He's also local to Dallas, and I've known David Matranga for years, but we've never done a con together. We were never at a convention, and I was like, this is perfect. We should be doing all of them together because Bertold and Reiner are like my favorite duo. It's like a vaudeville comedy team. Bertold and Reiner.
So it actually is Bertolt your favorite Attack on Titan character that isn't Reiner?
Oh yeah. I also think Jean is a great character and underappreciated. He's my why doesn't he have a pop? It's a great character. Even in the very end when things are going horrible, he still has got a smart mouth. And yeah, I love Jean. I feel like also I think Mike McFarlane, who is the director of the English dub of Attack on Titan, which I think is incredible. I think he's amazing, and I think it is one of the best English dubs of a Japanese product that I've seen in a really long time in terms of the care and effort taken to it. It works as a standalone thing. And he is the director of it. He is the reason it is so good. He's the reason why if you watch the English dub, you cry because he got all of those incredible performances out of people. And he is also the voice of John. He gave himself that little side character cool. Just because not knowing he was going to be that important a character in the early days because nobody knew. And then, and there's no pop for Jean. There should absolutely be a Funko Pop for Jean. Funko, if you're listening, there should be a Funko Pop for Jean. I also would love to see one for Reiner in his human form. There's the Titan ones, and there's a moment where he's in the phone, but I'm like, okay, did he not earn it in that finale? Come on.
I know he
Reiner
was
earned some points. He was working in that finale.
And him and John together, whenever John fully recognizes recognizes him as a scout, that moment is so touching. And I think it means a lot to Reiner as well, because Reiner's really struggling with his place.
100%.
Yeah. So I love them together in that moment. It's great.
I mean, I can't like any of the other characters that I accidentally killed along the way. That feels like a bad taste. So.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah, your favorite Marcos.
He's got so much guilt.
Oh, poor Marco, man. I was just watching that scene again and last night, and it still hurts.
Well, when we used to do I don't do many conventions. I haven't done many, and I just started back going kind of into that anime convention world, which is awesome because nowhere else in the world do you get to meet people that are that connected to what you do and want to talk about it. It's great. But in the early days when Bryce Papenbrook would be at the same place, I would make a joke the whole time Aaron's a punk. Aaron's the villain of this show. Totally kidding and not trying to spoil anything. And I'm like, oh, wait, did I speak that into existence? Was that me? No. Anyway.
And then people that have do the continual appearances his silence is deafening. Now I know.
Yeah, you can tell a lot by what you don't say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you because when the scene of Reiner killing Marco is pretty in the moment, Reina's almost freaking out at the moment. So when you were voice acting, did it feel like you were personally killing Marco?
Yeah, again, Mike, the director, was very adamant that he didn't want any of us to read ahead. I know it's going to be tempting to read the manga or get on the wiki or try, but he was really adamant that we avoid spoilers and not know what's coming, so that whatever that scene engenders in the moment, you can use at that time. If you read it on your own 4 months before you're in the studio, you're recreating those emotions. So I was like, what is happening? Because you always have to feel like your character is a hero. I knew that bad things were happening, but then when it happened, I'm like, whoa, okay. But that's also when I thought, okay, Reiner's not coming back in the audience's mind. He's dead to all of us forever. He's just going to be the awful traitor. So it was such an amazing surprise to me later in seasons when we start realizing, no, we're going to learn a lot about Reiner. We're going to feel very differently about him. We're going to discover he's going to be a fully rounded character. Which is amazing, and again, a gift of Attack on Titan, because I've been doing, like you said, I've been doing this for a lot of years. There were not times often in Dragon Ball GT where I'm crying in the booth because of the emotional content, but I literally was crying in the booth at multiple occasions with Attack on Titan.
Wow.
Okay, so now, all right, I got so many questions. I'm gonna love this. So, all right, let's start with that
That's kind of why
last
we're
part.
here. I mean, it would be really boring if you didn't. So I think we should do it. This is great.
So when it comes to like emotional scenes, so I have to imagine season 4, like in the first arc of season 4, those probably had some of them, like when Reiner's got like the gun in his mouth, or when he's talking to Eren and he's just like, just end it all and stuff.
Just kill me now,
that's gotta
please.
be one of the moments.
Yeah, that was definitely one where we watched the full scene. Sometimes we just watch the little snippets we're going to do, but this one, Mike was like, I want you to watch this whole scene, start to finish. And so we watched it, and I was crying from watching the scene from the original Japanese. We were watching it with subtitles, and I'm crying from that. And Mike's like, okay, now you haven't prepped it, just go right now. Because sometimes you go through line by line and he's like, no, I want you to do the whole scene now. Whatever you're feeling right now, use that in the scene. So a lot of the tears you hear in that scene are not manufactured acting tears. I wish I was that good of an actor, but they're like legitimately my tears from watching the scene 4 minutes beforehand in the original Japanese. It's just really well written stuff. It's just really powerful. I call it the Game of Thrones of anime.
That's incredible, yeah. And I think it really comes across in the performance. My personal episode of all of Attack on Titan would be season 4, episode 5. That's when Reiner and Eren are talking in the basement right before the war is declared. Yeah, that's my favorite episode. I think you did a phenomenal job.
Why are you here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
and Bryce Papenbrook is just a really good actor too.
Mm-hmm.
He brings so much to that role.
I thought the subtle emotion that you put into Reiner wasn't like overacting. Because like some actors will kind of like be like, oh, crying like that. It was just like this subtle emotional moment.
Yeah, and again, a lot of that credit. Thank you very much. That's very kind to say. A lot of that credit again goes to the director, to Mike McFarlane, who kind of all the way through this was like, I know this is a big, big action drama, but I want you guys to play it like an indie film. I want you to play it like there's a person sitting right across from you that you're having a conversation with. And try to play it as real. I mean, it's insane, the things that are happening. Like, people are being eaten and bitten in half by giant naked walking babies. But like, play with that with as much reality as you can. And that's the reason why I think it's so good. And a lot of that is because of Mike McFarlane and the work that he did to direct everybody and put everybody in that same space.
Yeah, I think Attack on Titan has a certain extremity that you don't really find in many other anime. It just has such intense emotions and such hardcore scenes just almost out of nowhere, especially through certain characters such as Eren. I think they just do that phenomenally.
It'll go fully operatic really quickly and really violent really quickly as well.
Yeah, and
that's
kind of
why I compared to Game of Thrones, because the Game of Thrones series was a little bit that same way. Like, all of a sudden it was like this touching conversation, and then whoa, there's blood everywhere. Okay. Also, clearly not afraid to kill off a main character in the same way that Game of Thrones was not afraid to.
Yeah.
So real quick, just to make absolute certain, from the sounds of it, some voice actors we've talked to, it's not the case, but it sounds like you've just genuinely watched or read the show. Like, the whole story, not just Reiner's lines. Or have you only seen Reiner's lines?
I will admit that there are some shows that some of us are in very briefly, because we might come in for a day or two on a show where we don't know everything about it. But I have been traveling with the show for now 10 years. It took 10 years, almost 11, to finish the 4 seasons of this. And we have been traveling together and on tours and on panels together. So yeah, not only have I seen it all, but I know about it and talked about it a lot. I will admit there are other shows that I don't know as much or as well. And some of them are 24 years ago. So I have a cheat sheet at my booth when people come around that's like kind of all of the main characters that I've played. And they're like, oh, is that for us to look at? I'm like, yes, you can look at that. But it's also for me because I don't remember how to spell these names or necessarily
remember this character.
Well, you don't say your own name as the actor, so you see it in the booth. But if that was 10 years ago, I'm like, yeah, I remember that guy. I don't remember what his name is.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to go back to how you played so many different characters. Since you've been in the industry for so long, you've played villains, like Doflamingo. and you've played teachers like Mifune. I consider him a really great teacher to all the kids in Soul Eater. And you've been a protector like Kogami. He doesn't want any harm done to Akane. And but I wanted to know, are there some roles that you could never conventionally play, but that you would like to someday?
I don't know. I am always for interesting characters, and like trans characters are fascinating, but at the same time, I think you can find trans actors who can play that role. Like, I want to be an advocate, but I don't want to take that job away from somebody. And that was the difference in the early days. In the early days, it was literally like there were 5 people and you did all of the roles in the show just because it had to get done and it had to be done by Thursday. Now, diversity is now correctly front and center. Like, you should find someone age appropriate. You should find someone gender appropriate. You should find someone racially appropriate. Like, if it's a clearly a black character, let's not have a white guy voicing that character. And in the early days, they didn't have time or resources to worry about that. It was literally like, of the 20 people we have on a roster, it's going to be one of those 20 because it has to be done by tomorrow at 5. So I don't think there's a lot of chance for me to play those roles, but I think that is absolutely correct and appropriate that I am not playing those roles. Julius, again, spoilers if you're a Clover fan. Julius disappeared from the show for a while and then comes back as a younger version of himself. And even though I had played a lot of young heroes and, Goten and GT and lots of young guys that are up here and come on, we can do it. Like, I had to re-audition to be the young version of Julius because I'd done nothing but, Kogami style gravelly bad guys for such a long time that I had to remind him, like, oh, I can do the other thing still. I still have that vocal range, but I had to prove to them again because directors get used to you from what they've used you in last. Like, it's hard for them to see you as something you've never done before. Sometimes you have to just sneak in and audition. Like, I'll look at the audition sides that go out to the general acting community and sometimes submit one. And just to say, like, hey, I know I've worked with you on 4 shows, but don't forget that I would also like to do this.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's really interesting how you've played so many different types of characters, such as King Julius, Reiner, Goten, etc., etc. Is there any character in particular you think, regardless of which character is your favorite, is there any character that you think you did the best performance of giving?
Well, I will say when Chris George called me in to do Julius in Black Clover, and he was another one that I'd done villains and tough guys and gruff guys with before, and crusty cops that smoked cigarettes all the time and said, the problem here is, but he said, I've seen you in anime conventions before, and I have seen you nerding out over people's cosplay when you're like, oh my God, look at that sword. That's so cool. He's like, I know what Nerd Rob sounds like. And Nerd Rob, when he's not trying to be cool and show off to anybody, is exactly what I want Julius to be. So that is probably the closest to my actual voice and the way I react, which is like, hey, you're cool. Let's just talk. Tell me about magic. You do spells? That's awesome. Like, that's what I sound like, and that's my level of normal enthusiasm. I would love to. And then he's like, at a certain point, Julius does have to be the Wizard King and drop the hammer on a few people. And so it's good to know that you can drop into the lower register and be tough. I don't know that I personally am a tough guy like that, but Julius definitely can bring it. He has a grimoire the size of planets. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he's probably the closest to my natural voice and natural temperament as anybody else.
That's really interesting.
I think if I'd said Doflamingo in answer to that question, it would be really concerning.
That's funny. No, I haven't seen your roles really on everything.
He really, really likes to kill. I mean, that's why I laugh so much. Doflamingo, known for his laugh the world over, because he loves his job. He just loves his job, which happens to be killing people.
I love it. Yeah, I haven't seen your role in everything, such as I haven't seen One Piece. I've seen maybe a couple clips of Doflamingo stuff, but I don't watch One Piece.
1,000 episodes. What's holding you back?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm on like Water 7 arc, so I'm like kind of almost to Doflamingo.
Oh yeah, if you're in Water, you're there. Yeah, I call that caught. Anything past 1,000 counts as caught up in my book.
Oh yeah.
That was one. I mean, we talk a lot about that's. First of all, amazing that is so popular right now. 25 years in, it's the 25th anniversary of One Piece, and it is more popular globally now than it has ever been. It is like the number one selling Funko. The game is blowing up. The live action TV, and so many people are starting it brand new right now. It's just wild. The manga is still selling, but it's amazing that 25 years in, that's at its peak, peak popularity. But I think a lot of it was too many episodes. People were afraid to start, and then COVID happened. And then they were like, oh, I do have time for 600 episodes or seven. I think we were at 780 at that point in time. Like, all right, sure, let's do it. But again, in the early days, true fans watch the sub. Nobody listens to the dub. I'm not mad at you if you're a sub, not dub person. I get it. Also, because they were really bad in the early days. Like, we were just cranking them out. We didn't know. They've gotten
in
much
the
better.
90s, some of the dubs.
Go back and give it a try.
Release DVDs were just.
Oh yeah, and that was the thing. Like, nobody cared about the English language track, but it had to be on the DVD if you were going to sell it to like Walmart or Best Buy or somebody like that. You had to have an English language track. So in the early days, Funimation was just a treadmill of trying to crank out English language tracks, which is why you have the same person in playing 4 different characters in the same episode back then. And it was all, 20-something white guys trying to sound like old men. And it was like, now you just get the right person for that. And part of it is that the English dubs have become so much more popular, so much more the way that people consume it. And a lot of it is that they're streaming it, they're watching it at home. It's just on in the background while they're making dinner, while they're doing their laundry, or it's on the screen while they also have Instagram and their homework or other things that they're doing. So again, in COVID, the English dubs became a lot more prevalent because people just wanted something on in their house because they were trapped there for days on end and couldn't leave.
It's awesome how
so that's one of the reasons that One Piece came back so strong.
True, yeah. As well as like currently the whole movie style animation they're doing is just phenomenal. But yeah, I mean, I don't even watch it, and even I know, so it's crazy. Yeah. But it's phenomenal how in tune you are.
Show. Start that as your cliff notes. Start with the live action. It was actually pretty great. We all went in expecting it to be terrible because so many live action adaptations were terrible, and then all of us were like, "Wait, is this good? I think this is good. Am I crazy? I think this is actually really good."
Awesome, yeah. It's incredible how in tune you are with your characters. Not only the knowledge, but also just being naturally and organically there for them, as you've described through Reiner, and how you described you mostly with King Julius. In fact, that's the role that I completely agree. He might not be my favorite character. I think that's your best performance, personally. But I did want to get into one role because My Hero Academia superfan space in chat would never let us leave it down if we just didn't cover it. So I did have a couple My Hero Academia questions for you, at the very least.
Sure, let's stain it up. Let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, so what was it?
Weird.
Yeah. So what was it like to reprise your role at the end of season 6? And do you agree with the direction your character has gone in?
Second question first. Yes, I do agree with the role, the direction the character has gone into. I was so happy. And again, I don't read ahead because I don't want to spoil it. If you think you're dying in a scene, you don't want to, if you know you're not really dying, you don't think you're dying in the scene. You know what I mean? So I try always not to spoil it. But every time I was up at Crunchyroll, Colleen Klinkenbeard, who directs My Hero, and it's brilliant. The first 4 seasons is amazing. She was the one who cast me in that and directed me in that. And every time I was up at Crunchyroll for something else, I'd be like, "Hey, any Stain signing? And she wouldn't tell me. She never would say anything. And then finally one day she texted and was like, "Hey, are you in the country? Because I work a lot in the UK." And she was like, I'm like, "Yes, is it Stain? Are we back?" No answer. And then they booked a session. I'm like, "Okay, great. Is it Stain? Are we doing Stain?" No answer. And finally when I got there, she's like, "Yes, he's finally back." I mean, I knew he had to come back. He was too cool.
It's hilarious.
He was too cool not to come back at some point in time. But yeah. I was also super happy with the way they brought him back and the fact that he's now, I don't want to say seen the error of his ways, but he realized that his methods didn't work. Mm-hmm. He he did what he thought was the tough and difficult thing to do to change the world, and then it didn't change the world. And I think he's had a lot of time in prison to sit there and think about that fact.
Yeah.
Of like, oh yeah, I killed a whole lot of people and things didn't get a lot better. Maybe I'm not so much the good guy. So even when he escapes, the line when he's like the guard is on the floor right as he's escaping, he's like, what are you? He's like, I'm a man that knows the difference between right and wrong, but a monster still. Like, oh, that's a really good line and a really interesting turn on that character. So where it's going now, and again, I haven't read. The people in the manga tell me there's a lot more Stain to come, but what we've seen so far, and even his conversation with All Might when he finally came back, that was great. It's also just great to get to do a scene with Chris Sabat, because Chris and I have known each other for, like I said, probably 25 years. Our careers took slightly different arcs. His is a little bit larger than mine. I'm not too proud to admit, but it was fun to do a scene with Chris.
That's really interesting just to hear that whole story, because where that question even came from in the first place. So I thought Stain died at the end of season 2. That just was I just didn't even realize there was another
they never
interpretation.
said. Yeah.
And so before I'd watched season 6, I just didn't know Stain was coming back. So I was like watching an interview that you had done like maybe a year or two ago. I don't remember which one, but this was at the time where you were saying, oh yeah, Stain's like, he's in the manga. He's just sitting there in prison in the background. I was like, wait, he's alive? And then I watched the anime. I was like, oh, he's back.
There's one frame in the manga where someone is walking down the hallway in the prison and he's just still frozen like that. Oh, that's not a good angle. He's still frozen like that. Yeah, I need to get a much higher thing. I'm like, see, look, this is all skinny, and then and I hear like, oh, that's not good at all. This is how you show that you've been doing it 26 years if you show all the jowls. But we'll work on that. We're gonna prop that up.
Awesome.
Or just lower. Wait, hold on. There we go.
I wanted to ask another Stain question really quick. So
yes, ask away.
Okay, so I'll ask it for both you and for your character as Stain, as separately people. So what do you, as you and Stain, what do you think Hero Society's biggest flaw is?
Me or me and Stain? So
both
me first.
Yeah.
Me and Howard McCollum is just gross overacting. There's just a lot of people really milking. There's a lot of dumb actors that are just milking that scene. No, I'm kidding. I'm not talking about you, Eric Vale. I know you think I am, but I'm not. You're beautiful. You're a beautiful princess, and you do good work. No, I mean, I kind of agree. The whole idea of the commercialization of things definitely changed the world, and is a force in this world that I would question. And I think Stain would agree. I would say maybe from the Rob McCollum standpoint, maybe don't solve your problems by murder. Mm-hmm. Maybe like a strongly worded email, an op-ed piece in a newspaper, go on a podcast, not a killing spree. Yeah, like podcast, not killing sprees. I think that is like a slogan that I could get behind when you want to change things in the world.
You're proving your path right now.
But this is the first step. We're doing important work here, people. I want you guys to know, the 4 of us right here, we're changing the world.
Remember, the alternative is the killing spree.
Yeah, think about all the people we're not killing right now.
We're doing really good. We're doing
all the people
things.
We didn't kill. Thanks to this podcast.
Think how many lives were saved just by the 3 of us being available for a killing spree right now. We could be doing something else with this time. We could just be out killing people, and we're not. We're here. So already we're doing really good work here.
Yes, y'all are welcome. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, Cam, you had another question?
I wanted to ask, so you are, according to your
wiki... I'm going to keep playing with this. You keep asking.
On top of being a voice actor, you're also a producer and a writer.
Yes.
And it looks like you've been working on a new project, because according to your Instagram, you've been to Europe shooting at different locations.
Yes.
I saw that you've been in some catacombs, which is really cool. You've been to some, looks like Eastern Orthodox cathedrals, which absolutely stunning, beautiful. So I wanted to ask, can you tell us about this project?
Sure. So that was Bucharest and deepest Romania, which is where we're shooting. There's a small Venn diagram of people that overlap from the anime fans and the people that know what I was going to be talking about. And whenever one of them comes up to my table, it's super exciting. But I have been writing and producing corporate like training material for many years, and there's one huge project for a company called Novachrono that is an IT security training company, and other companies hire them to do their. So you might work for this company, but you get phishing emails from this company, and if you click on it and you shouldn't have, they go, "Oh, Cam, you shouldn't have clicked on that. You have to go to training jail and watch this video." Well, I write those videos. And one of them is this huge series called The Inside Man that is meant to look and feel like an IT like a Netflix show or an Amazon show. It's like a hacker drama set here. You know, it's a full season, same characters. It builds through a storyline, and we're now on year 6. We're just about to release season 6. And the other anime tie-in there is that Brandon Potter is the only American in it. It's shot in the UK, but the only American in it is Brandon Potter, who was Shanks in One Piece Red and is the character of Shanks, as well as a lot of other anime voices. And also Quintus in the Chosen TV series, the Christian TV series. But so he and I get to go over and I write it. I created it and come up with a story together with my director, Jim, and we, you know, it started very small, like in an office in the UK, and then it got a little bigger and a little bigger and a little bigger, and now we're like blowing up castles in Romania. So it's super exciting. Wow. Yeah, London, Berlin, Romania. So never thought that, just like I never thought like anime would be a real full-time job now that you can just go to anime conventions all over the place and make a living. Like I never thought the little corporate training videos I did with my buddy in the UK would become a big major thing, but the budgets like rival like some TV shows now. We're bigger than they are, and have huge crews of like 100 people on one day on the set with a crane and a light and cast, you know, craft services and wardrobe assistant and second wardrobe assistant and makeup and third makeup assistant. Yeah, it's crazy. From starting out with just the shoestring and some duct tape to now becoming a full-on big production. So yeah, I'm super lucky, really, and I get to go to the UK a lot, which is why Colleen was like, "Hey, are you in the country?"
Wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I had no idea, but that's really cool. I didn't even know there was like those IT videos, but that's cool.
Yeah, you can't actually, unfortunately, you can't see it unless you work for one of those companies, but you can see the trailers for it. If you go online and look up The Inside Man, you can see the trailers.
Okay.
So, and it's fun. It's just cool because he also gets to hire a bunch of cool actors. And luckily through doing the voiceover, I've also worked a lot of audio dramas and audio projects here. Like there was a podcast called 1865, which was a historical audio drama that was really popular and did really well. And was like, "Oh, these people are really good. Where'd you find these actors?" I'm like, "Yeah, these are the anime dub actors that nobody knows, that you people don't understand. Like they're incredible. And they have more reps. They have more hours on a microphone than anybody else in the voiceover world. Like anime actors will have 30,000 hours in the booth in their career and no one else has that amount of time on a mic. So no one has that ability, unless you're doing a daily radio show. So no one has the deep chops that the anime actors do.
Oh, that's really cool.
Conway, did you have a question?
Well, my question is going to be going back to the anime stuff. Because unfortunately, I haven't seen as many shows as our other two friends here have.
He's not a nerd. He's a normie.
Yeah, actually, the only one I have seen is Attack on Titan.
We're all welcome.
All my questions are centered around. But separate from which role you think you did the best performance in, is there one that was just your favorite to do, regardless of how well you think you did in it?
Well, okay, there's favorites for different reasons. Like it's hard to pick your favorite child.
But there is one.
But Reiner is my favorite in that it was the biggest profile thing I got to do and meant that I got to go on, to big conventions and do press interviews and do a lot of stuff. That was the first time to be something that was culturally a moment in that time. Like the hour that the reveal moment dropped of telling that he was the Armored and he was the Colossal and come on, we need you. Like that was trending on Instagram, but people filming their friends watching it. Like you realize like, oh, I'm a part of a thing that's happening right now. This is a cultural moment. So that's my favorite for that reason. shows. Kogami, I think, is super cool, and I talk about that because I think not enough people ever saw Psychopass, and I want them to go do it. So I talk about that
watch it
to go check it out.
So cool.
But Doflamingo is great because he never changes. He's just pure evil, and he loves his job, and he's no redeeming qualities ever. There's no regret. There's no like Stain like heroic anti-hero. Nope, it's just pure evil, pure chaos. That's why I love him. But there are some. There's a show called Barakamon, which is, and then a spinoff called Honda-kun, but that is just the sweetest little show. Nothing blows up. There are no planets. There are no Kamehameha transformations. It's just about a calligraphy artist who gets way full of himself and gets sent to this Japanese fishing village to get over himself. And it's him putting up with the rascally neighborhood kids. And it's just the sweetest show. And it's fun to get to be a part of. It's like, it's tender and it's sweet and it's just cool storytelling. And it's beyond what most people think anime is. And you're like, no, anime can be everything. There's an anime about insurance. There's an anime about working in a convenience store. There's every kind of storytelling. And so, Barakamon, I would say, is another favorite just because it was such a sweet, fun show.
Awesome. So do you have a type of role you generally prefer? So like, for example, like a serious character, a lighthearted, funny character, a villain, a hero. Are there any ones that you just think like, yeah, those are my favorite to play?
I will say I probably love villains. Okay. For one, because you usually can be nice and gravelly, so it doesn't matter how much sleep you've had or how much vocal rest you had, you can roll. Like, this is my nighttime voice. It's night now. This is what I sound like. This is also what I sound like at 10 o'clock in the morning. So if you're doing a villain, this is a good range to be in. So it's nice because you don't have to do all the warm-ups. But also, villains don't work nearly as hard as the heroes. Maybe because evil people are just naturally lazy. But if you think about it, like, the heroes have giant swords and they're like, ah! And the villain, if he's strong enough, is just like, ugh. And the building falls. He like barely lifts his hands. He raises an eyebrow and someone explodes. Usually for the really powerful villain, like, they don't have to exert themselves until the very end of their arc when things have gone horribly, horribly wrong. Mm-hmm. And then it's usually just like a little bit of screaming and then you blow up or incinerate. But the heroes are screaming all the time. They're, moral justification and righteousness is just loud. So I think, as in terms of not having to scream as much, I do prefer villains.
You probably have to do more evil laughter though. Like, the villains probably on average laugh a lot more than the heroes. Especially
Doflamingo, man, he laughs so much. Like, when you finally get into it, you'll realize, like, oh, that's why. If you've ever seen pictures of the character, he is like 7 to 9 feet tall, depending on estimates, and has like abs upon abs upon abs. Like, his abs have their own abs. And it's because he laughs, because laughing is a core workout. So the director, Mike, would always be like, okay, do that one again. Also, Mike McFarlane, same director, was like, all right, this is a minute 45 of laughing. And I want it to build really small and keep going all the way through it. I don't want to cut it, so you can do it. So you'd go do a minute of like, and your stomach is dying, and they'd be like, oh, you got close, but I think you got another one in you. Oh, that was pretty close, but I think you got another one in you. So by the end of it, you've done that like 10 times in a row. He's like, actually, the first one was fine. I just wanted you to have to go through that.
Well, Tommy, it looks like you got a new ab workout.
Nah, bro.
Yeah, dude, just laugh.
I tell you, bro, I laugh all the time. And sometimes when I laugh, we've had a few podcasts where I was just dying laughing, and I could just feel it, especially if, because I do abs most workouts, but some days I do more than others. And if it was one of those days I did a lot of abs and then I'm just dying laughing, I can feel it.
See, but now I feel bad. I haven't made you laugh enough to put you in pain. Clearly, I'm failing as a guest.
No, but Conway, this helps push my narrative that you are secretly a villain.
Absolutely.
Yes. Oh, let's go. I mean, my profile character here is the main villain of Naruto, so...
Yeah, that's fully your role in the show.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Rob,
I'm fine with being the Walky Talky podcast villain.
Walky Talky podcast. I am a screenwriter.
Cam is the brains, you're the energy, and he's the villain. This is easy. This makes sense.
Perfect.
It's a great combination. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really passionate. about writing really quick, I do want to say, so the phenomenon that you're describing, Rob, is, just to keep it as briefly as possible, usually the antagonist, you want them to be stronger than the protagonist. So whatever path they're on, it just is stronger than the main hero. So they are able to laugh or just flick away or just not scream or whatever. But the point is that this stronger path has a limit, whereas the protagonists, who are on the weaker path usually, they're able to go past that limit. So the antagonists, they're the perfect representation, the embodiment of this path to get it to the extent of that limit. Whereas the protagonists, they're the perfect representation of their path, which will continue to fight on past that limit, which is usually why they win.
Cam is rolling her eyes there, but you're totally right. This is Joseph Conrad. This is the hero's journey. There is not a villain's journey. There's just the hero's journey. So the hero has to start out here and go somewhere, achieve something, overcome something, and then end up here. The villain just ends up thinking he's awesome and then going off a cliff. It's the very other way. There's very little growth.
Exactly.
It was interesting when we were recording the backstory for Reiner in Attack on Titan, which is tragic and really well written and heartfelt. And like when you start really feeling for him and realizing what happened when they were all kids, and then he becomes the big brother and that change. Like, I love that we were getting so much story about him and starting to really feel for him. It was almost the same time that we were recording backstory for Doflamingo, which, you know, is not nearly as heavy and serious, but it's pretty dark, very dark. And he's one of the only pirates in One Piece that has a fully formed backstory. And I was really worried that they were going to make it sympathetic or that they were going to tell me something terrible and make me feel bad for him. And I'm like, no, I just love that he's evil. I just love that he's terrible. And luckily, like right at the moment that they could have softened him, they were like, no, he was terrible then too. Don't worry. He's always been awful. I was like, yes, this is what a villain should be. You want the villains to be awful so you can be that much happier when the heroes overthrow them. That's their job.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen a TV show called The Boys, but it's basically just ridiculous. It's absurd satire. The Deep is an antagonist that basically is the exact embodiment of that. And he's my favorite character because of how ridiculous it comes across. It's just stupid, absurd. It's so funny.
Yeah, the overlap of My Hero and The Boys is
yes.
Is there. Like if there was an R-rated My Hero, it would be The Boys. And I like it. I like that show a lot. But yeah, just and also like All Might and there's a lot of parallels between My Hero. I feel like the people that made The Boys were probably a My Hero fan, or at least an anime fan. Like I'm starting to see the threads more in other storyline in TV and in film. Like I can see some things that I'm like, oh, I bet this was an anime fan. Just like back in the day, you could be like, oh, this was a D&D guy. This guy or girl, this writer played Dungeons and Dragons, and I can see how that shaped their mind. And now I'm starting to see like, oh, this is an anime fan, and they're starting to build their story that way.
Okay. Since we're back to My Hero Academia, just real quick, I do want to ask a fan question that we have in chat from Space, the person I was mentioning earlier. So he was wondering, do you know about My Hero Academia Vigilante? This is like a spin-off manga that hasn't been adapted in the anime.
It's a spin-off manga. I have not read it, but I know that you learn so much about Shizome, about Stain in that point as his hero. So again, in case we animate it, someday if they turn it into animation, I kind of don't want to read it, but I am fascinated, so I may just break down.
That gets into his next question.
Stain is a character that I would like to know more about.
Yeah, would you like to reprise your role of Stain, assuming it does get an anime adaptation?
Oh, would love to. And I know from people that read the manga that he is not spoiler. Okay, spoiler. He's coming back. There's more Stain in this My Hero anime to come. But if they went back and did Vigilante as an anime, I would love to get to do that.
Okay, and then
he's a fun character. He's just very. The audition for this was literally Colleen Klinkenbeard said real quick. I was there for something else in the studio. She said, "Come in here, go in the booth for me, and stick your tongue out." I was like, "What?" And she's like, "Stick your tongue out and kind of growl a little bit." I was like. She's like, great, that's your audition for Stain. Perfect. That's it. That's what I wanted to hear.
It's awesome.
Because that's his whole first scene. He's just sitting on the building going,
I love it, yeah. So the final...
A lot of tongue acting.
Final fan question for now is, it sounds like earlier you were describing Doflamingo as like what you would imagine to be your most evil character from everyone you've played, or at least notable people. What about the flip side of that? Who is, in your opinion, the most heroic character you've played?
All right, so yes, Space, I see your question there. Definitely Doflamingo is the most evil. like just pure agent of chaos. And that's what I love about him. There's no moral compass. He's like, I'll do anything to protect my family and my crew, and then he's terrible to them and kills several of them, and he's just a pure, kind of Trumpian agent of chaos, and so he's definitely the most evil. I kind of feel like for most heroic, it's going to be a toss-up between Reiner and Julius.
What about Goten?
Reiner,
yeah,
but he's just a kid. He's a teen. Like, he wants to show up to his dad and he wants to impress his family. But like Reiner, I maybe I'll say Julius, because Julius did sacrifice himself. I mean, but he knew he had time magic, so he did come back. The director fully lied to me, by the way, and told me that Julius died.
That's incredible.
He's not coming back.
I love that.
Just said like, hey, thanks for all your work. I really appreciate it. Great job on the show. And I'm like, wait, what? He's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, but time magic, like, surely. No, that's it, man. And for 3 months lied to my face, and then was like, okay, you got to come and audition for the younger version, but I think you'll be able to come back. Julius is coming back.
Hilarious.
So yeah, it's tough though, because like Reiner sacrificed everything, but also wanted to die. And if you already want to die, it's not as great. If you really, really, really want to live and still do the scary, terrifying thing, that's even bigger. I don't know. I feel like everything that Reiner had to carry on both sides of that fence, and the guilt that he dealt with, and the way that the kind of dissociative disorder he dealt with. Yeah, I'm still gonna say Reiner. Date Masamune from Sengoku Basra, also very heroic. Rides a big horse with his samurai gear, and it has a muffler pack, even though it's a horse. I mean, you gotta love.
I mean, I would say Kogami was pretty heroic in like season 1. I mean, he is,
but he's just so broken. He's so broken.
Yeah.
And I love, that's what I love about him, is that like he's basically almost given up, and then still is able to come in. Kogami was one of many. For some reason, I sound like someone that has something in their mouth, because like Kogami had a cigarette for a long time. So like Mifune from Soul Eater had his like stick of toothpick or celery, or not celery stalk, but like stalk of wheat. I had so many characters that have something in their mouth. I was like, is that just what I sound like? Do I just sound like I have something in my mouth? Is that like a character trait?
That's what you're good
at.
I
had a lot of characters with that way, and I also have a lot of one-eyed characters with eye patches. I don't know why director, maybe it's just because if a director hires me for a one-eyed character one time, then they think of me every time they see one. But it's like, oh, do I sound like a one-eyed character? Okay.
A lot of voice actors do like the real life acting, even though they don't see it, just so it sounds more authentic. When you have like a one-eyed character, do you just like cover one eye or close one eye or anything?
You close one eye.
Yeah, you get a little squinty sometimes. I mean, I will put something in my mouth if I've got to do like a character that's smoking or something.
Kogami's always
do that sometimes. Do an actual sip when you're sipping, but yeah, method anime acting, which is great if you're playing a hero, not as good if you're playing a murderer.
Probably not the best idea.
Blood.
Go on
a balloon knife. You take a doll and you start stabbing. Like, yeah, take that.
I mean, it is a lot of people talk about method acting and all that kind of stuff, but actually, it really does help. The best voiceover actors are just the best actors. I'm not saying that about me, but I'm just saying in general, because I've done lots of casting and working with them. Like, you got to be an actor first, figure out how to act, figure out how to tell stories, and then you start to play with your voice. A lot of people want to go straight into voiceover or straight into anime voiceover specifically, and we're like, okay, it can happen, but there's a lot of shortcuts there. You need to start with acting, is what we usually tell folks.
Yeah,
that's actually what the first voice actor we interviewed said.
All right, Cam, you go.
Oh,
wait, there's Cams. Cam. Yeah.
Did you start out with acting? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, so I was an actor trying to do it in Dallas and doing commercials and voiceover stuff and improv comedy. I was doing improv comedy here and auditioning for things and a little bit of theater at that time. I've since gone on to do a lot more theater, but was in that world. and it was actually performing improv. And Mike McFarlane was in another improv troupe and said, "Hey, I'm doing work up at Funimation." I'm like, "What is that?" And like, it's we dub Japanese anime. And I'm like, "What is that?" And then he's like, "You have Dragon Ball?" I was like, "Oh, okay." And went in, and it was, no money. It was in the upstairs of a bank building. It was just like the random thing that you did as a side hustle as an actor, because you had to do 35 different things to survive as an actor. Yeah. And this was just one of them. And the idea of there being anime conventions and that you would see in Times Square a full screen of Attack on Titan, that it would be this mainstream someday was unheard of to any of us. It was just like a cool thing to do. And then we kind of got into the world and understood how cool anime was and how much of it there was. So we became the early adapters that were explaining it to other people and going, "No, but you got to check it out. It's not just Speed Racer. There's so much more."
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's actually a fun idea really quick. You were just saying that you're getting more into theater. Hypothetically, alternate universe where this does happen, just all of the characters you've ever played gets a play. Which one would you like to act out, choreograph from an actual play?
To be the actual, getting to do the Doflamingo walk would be pretty exciting. But again, I think it's Julius.
Okay.
I think it's Julius getting to be a big dork, big black Clover, just like super nerdy all the time, geeking out with Max following him around trying to do things. And then when it suddenly becomes time to be awesome and powerful, like just the grimoire above him as a set piece, the theater design kid in me is thinking about like how awesome that would be on stage. So cool. It should be a musical. Black Clover the musical.
I'm down.
If you're out there, Broadway producers, let's make that happen. That could be the one. Unfortunately,
now that you said you did theater, I can totally tell you're a theater kid. Yeah.
Oh, I did. I was a total theater kid, and
I was a theater kid as well. So yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, we're very dramatic. But I was a theater kid that couldn't sing. So as much as I love musicals, that was not open and available.
I couldn't sing either. I'm not a great singer.
That's why I did it. I had so many people who wanted me to do theater. I get asked all the time at work, "Are you a theater kid?" I didn't want to do it because I was like, "Bro, I know I can't sing, and I don't want to do that on stage."
But there's lots of good theater without that. Yeah, basically before they knew, back in my day, because I'm old, we've already established that with the number of years I've been doing this. But like before they knew what to do with ADHD kids, they just threw us into theater. They're like, "Oh, you're energetic. Go do theater. You can run around a lot and make noises."
I love that.
That's probably why they want me to do it.
I'm not saying that, but if that's what you're hearing, if that's what you're taking away from what I said, then that is your own journey.
Take it as a compliment.
You got to figure out.
Yeah. Kogami, did you want to ask the next question?
All right. So getting back to Reiner from like 30 minutes ago. Okay. So when it came to the reveal that Reiner was the traitor, or at least one of the traitors.
Wait, what? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, spoiler. Sorry, you didn't on there yet.
You were doing the thing, but we can't see you because your camera's off.
Yeah, exactly. Did you, throughout season 2, so we had, when I was watching Attack on Titan, we were doing streams about it as I was watching it. So this was a big controversial thing between me and Udi here, okay? But when you were voice acting early season 2, or even season 1, did you ever suspect Reiner, especially after Annie, did you ever suspect he might be a traitor too? Or were you just like, what? When you got the line when he said, "I'm the Armored Titan"?
So between 1 and 2 is when it was spoiled for me. Season 1, I did not. And we actually did most of that in a block before we released it. Like that wasn't releasing in real time, episode at a time. We got into that phase later. But in the beginning, we got together and did, I think, almost all of season 1 in one block before it was released. And director told me, like, yeah, he's just a guy. He's just one of the dudes. He's kind of gruff. He takes his job seriously. He's just one of the background, but he's part of the team. And that's all I knew, and never suspected. But then when it was announced and the cast was announced, like Twitter blew up, like, "Oh, Howard McCollum is Reiner Braun." And I was getting the interview requests, and I'm like, this guy has like 5 lines in all of season 1. Why do you care? And then I figured it out. I'm like, oh, okay, I know. Once Annie was revealed, I'm like, okay, I didn't know. But I didn't Wasn't sure about Bertold, although there were some signals in there. But so even though I kind of figured it out and knew that would be a reveal at some point, I thought it was going to be this huge moment, like end of an episode, dun dun dun, oh, huge reveal. And then the fact that it happened the way it did was just so awesome because it was so unexpected. Yeah. And like my reaction in the booth recording it was exactly everybody else's reaction watching it. It was like, wait, what? Back that up. He just said that? And there's like basically Reiner's reaction. Like, what? You're doing this now? Like that? So it was awesome. And Mike McFarlane just didn't say anything, just said, just watch. And so I'm watching and reading, the subtitles in Japanese. I'm like, wait, what? And he just has this big smile on his face. He's like, okay, watch it again. And he said, don't put anything on this. I want you to take it as though you're talking about what you had for dinner last night. Like, don't put any importance on this. Just totally throw it away. And it was so cool because it was like the perfect way to underplay what was one of the biggest, especially at that early on in the show. That was one of the biggest reveals and the biggest moments. So that was cool to get to be a part of.
Yeah. No, I thought it was so when I was watching it, like, so it was the big thing. I guessed all the Titan traders and stuff. So I already predicted Reiner and Berto, but I love to see what he just said. I was just dying laughing when he was just like, yeah, on the Arbor Titan, he's the Colossal. He just says so casually. It was so funny.
Yeah. Hey, I heard.
I thought it was great. I thought that whole thing was interesting. And then his kind of mental journey after that and the dissociative, which is an actual trauma response that we did some research on, but that dissociative, like, we're still cool, right? We're still friends. I mean, I killed a whole lot of people, but you were good, right? And not understanding why Aaron wasn't totally cool with that.
No, okay, that actually is a perfect segue to the next question. Had to do with, so especially in like season 2 and stuff, you get the whole warrior versus soldier back and forth, but it's basically multiple personality disorder. So what was that like for you to record that? Did you have to like almost do any tricks for yourself? Or did you just
it wasn't so much tricks as we actually did some research and talked to some people about it because we wanted to deal with it in a respectful way. It's actually not split personality. We did some research into it. It's not bipolar, it's not split personality. It's called dissociative disorder, and it happens to people when they have really strong trauma. And it's like they actually create two paths in their history that they know are both true. Like it's not that they think the other didn't happen, like that happened, but it also didn't happen because when I'm over here thinking this way, I can be okay. And talk to some mental health people to make sure that we were doing it and didn't want to do it in any way comic or goofy or wacky or like, oh, he's the crazy guy, he's dangerous, because like we want to be respectful to people that have mental health issues. The anime fandom is huge and wide, but it's always been really inclusive, and we have lots of neurodiverse people at all levels of the spectrum, and so we kind of knew it was important, like, to get that right. And yeah, also just the original Japanese performance is so good that like that gave us a lot of the roadmap.
The guidance,
yeah. I completely agree. It's very important to do that, especially with such sensitive subject matter. You got to respect it for those who especially need it, whether it's victims of those or for others who may need it to heal from it. Going in, it's just ironic or just hilarious just to hear you say that, because I have other problems with Attack on Titan, just the story itself, not like the dub or anything. But like the end of the story, I think doesn't do this as well with some other themes that I've talked about this ad nauseum. We don't have to go into it, but it's really interesting to hear that this especially just is a thing, at least for the English dub for Attack on Titan.
Yeah, I as a person who feels very fortunate to work with Crunchyroll, the U.S. distributor of Attack on Titan, I will say that there is no problems with anything in the story. It is perfect, and how dare you, sir?
10 out of 10.
Amen.
Yeah, take that.
Okay.
But also, everyone is welcome to their own opinion, and I encourage others to have conversations about things that they would like to see or like to have seen differently. I will not take part in those, but I think that conversation.
Well, hold on. We're gonna force you to
I think
take
it is
part
important
in
that
one.
things are taken seriously.
All right. Well, we'll have you take part in one unserious one.
This is goofy.
Okay.
Trust me. I already know it's goofy.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So, I'm sure
Cam's reaction.
you probably like heard it somewhere.
She's
in the
already out.
episode.
Cam is already out. She's like, oh, here. I don't even know what's coming, and she's like, no, I can't take these guys anywhere.
Here we go.
Hey, we are the theater kids of this group.
Okay, God, we go for it.
Okay, so one of the, if not the most controversial event in Attack on Titan is centered around Reiner's quote-unquote plot armor. This is how he got his nickname, the Plot Armor Titan. And it's when Reiner manages to transfer his consciousness to survive Levi's throat stab, and then he does it again to survive the Thunder Spears. So what do you think about the whole thing? The transfer of the consciousness thing. Were you just like, I don't care? Were you like, wow, that's goofy? Were you like, no, that makes perfect sense? Like, what did you think when you were talking about it?
I will say only that it seemed awfully convenient that we learned about it for the first time right then. Like, oh, nobody else knew about this. But at the same time, like, until it had happened to a character on screen, how would you know? It wasn't if it had been a surprise to Reiner, like he didn't know he could do that until that moment. That was the question I had. Like, has he done this before? And Mike and I were talking about it. I was like, yeah, he probably knew this was something he could do. He wasn't sure it was going to work, but he knew before then that this was something he could do. I mean, is there a big training manual when you become a Titan? Do you get like a manual, like a handbook on like page 338, subsection B, transfer and consciousness? Because that seems like a security risk. You wouldn't want that getting in the wrong hands. But yeah, so it seemed there's a literary phrase called the Deus Ex Machina, which is when the exact thing you need shows up at the exact moment you need it. And I was like, okay, that's a little convenient. Also, just him being able to eject himself out the back when that hasn't happened the other times. We've never seen him leave the Titan frame until the finale. And then there's like, oh, but he's still hanging from the thing because he got out of his body. Okay. Some of those things out there. But at the same time, like it took them 4 years. They had to get it done. You don't have any more time. We don't have any more time. You got to get it done. We got to get it moving.
Yeah.
Got to compress the story.
Actually, you bring up a good point there. Is there anything that like you have noticed that like isn't really caught up in the mainstream? Just like a low-key, underrated moment that like whether for good or bad, something that like you thought, that's interesting. No one else is talking about
there were
this.
Cool things going back after the fact, like how many hints there are all the way through that you don't see until the second rewatch. A couple times when things go down and Reiner and Bertolt both step aside and are like about to bite. And you don't know what that is. It looks like maybe they're covering their mouth, maybe they're shocked. You don't, but then you go back and you're like, oh my God. And then in the finale, again, earmuffs are the main, but when it is revealed that Eren has been watching all of this happen all through the entire time, the fact that he's behind all of those shots, that he's in season 1, that he's in season 2, there's this hooded cloaked figure in the back, and you can go back and track all the way through. So this clearly wasn't like Lost where they were figuring it out when they got to the finale. They're like, I don't know, I guess we ended this way. Like this was a plan from the very beginning. He had everything planned out from day one, both in the manga and in the anime. And so it again is a testament to his writing. It's just also so dark, man. Because I was lucky enough, I got to watch the finale with Bryce Papenbrook, who voices Eren, and Trina Nishimura, who voices Mikasa. And the three of us were watching it together on my phone at midnight in front of a closed restaurant in San Antonio, like on the patio. And I hadn't seen any of their scenes because I didn't want to see it until it was put together. So I didn't know anything that was happening in their part of the story. They didn't know what was happening in my part of the story. So we're all crying. And then it was all done. And Bryce was like, no, you got to keep watching. You got to watch the little square in the bottom of the credits. And so I'm watching and I'm like, oh, this is really dark. This is not hopeful at all. We haven't learned anything. We're just going to keep making the same mistakes. This is bad. No, so I was also like, Statue of Liberty. It's like Planet of the Apes. We were in America all the time. No.
I love it.
But we're not. That's not what I'm saying. That's not the conspiracy theory I'm trying to start. There are some conspiracy theories that I want to start, but that's not one of them.
Make a change in .org.
Can we know at least one?
Well, the absolutely not true thing that I want to just tell everybody is canon is that I have advanced knowledge at the end of One Piece because they're searching for the One Piece, the ultimate treasure. that when they find the One Piece, it's going to be the first Dragon Ball, and the universe is with the name.
No, even better. You
Right?
could just troll the internet
No,
because
I
you
can't
are
do that.
Doflamingo. So haha,
gonna
I
say
got
that's
industry
fact.
knowledge. I know what the
You
One
heard it
Piece
here
is.
first. Totally true. One Piece, the treasure is a Dragon Ball.
100% confirmed.
Vegeta is showing up any day now.
Cam, next question I'm assuming from you.
So I guess another thing I'll ask is, what would you say is the moment that defines Reiner Braun best?
Either when he's sitting around with everybody when they're about to plan the final attack, and none of them, when he first has come back towards the end, and of course everyone is mad at him because he's killed Marco and so many people, and he's like, hey, I'm not telling you I'm a good guy. I'm saying we have to do these things to save humanity. So why don't we stop bitching and go do that? Like, that's the kind of frustrated Big Brother thing. But also some of the Big Brother moments of him flashing back and trying to take care of the other people, offering to take the burden, that was, I know, I really loved the Big Brother kind of Papa Bear vibe that eventually he got to, of like trying to take care of all these people, even though, because he just started out, you thought he was such a villain, and then you realize like, oh no, he's trying to take care of his tribe. One of those moments. I loved all the flashback stuff. I thought that was tragic and heartbreaking and really cool. The childhood stuff.
Nice.
Yeah.
What
I
do
really
you
like
guys
the flashback
think?
scenes too.
Well, okay.
I really like the flashback scenes.
You're not gonna like my answer, but my answer isn't canon.
Yeah,
I'm working on an Attack on Titan rewrite, and I would just go with the moment from that.
All right, I want to hear the rest of her answer, though.
Oh my
Okay, you're going.
Oh, I would say the moment that defines him best, I would say, is when he's in front of Aaron and he realizes that him and Aaron are the same. They have both,
Oh, you're picking my answer.
Yeah. They have both said they want to save the world when really they're doing it for their own selfish reasons. And they're both struggling with identity, I would say. And that,
Yeah,
I think, is a defining moment for him.
People ask about what the... Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead, Kogami.
I'll specify even further. When he jumps out of the chair on the ground, is like, "No, Aaron, I did it because it was my choice to go on," and so on and so on. That specific scene where he's got his hands and knees on the
Wants to be
ground.
punished.
That's good.
Yeah, just kill me now, please. Oh, it made me have a thought. Oh, that people said, like, what do you think the big takeaway is? What is the big moral lesson and I'm like, I don't know that it has one, other than like people are going to continue to be terrible and war is terrible, but also maybe don't give the ultimate power of the universe to a 14-year-old and expect really good choices to be made. Like, that's a lot of pressure to put on a bunch of kids. Like, Aaron did the best he could. There's a lot to deal with.
Well, that's actually a perfect segue.
You know everything. You can't even figure out pimples, but good luck. You now know everything.
That's a perfect segue to one of the questions.
Your frontal lobe isn't even developed.
Exactly.
But it's perfect
There's no
segue.
cause and effect until 18.
Yeah. Perfect segue to one of the questions that we were going to ask last. I guess we could just ask now since perfect segue. Okay, that's the thoughts on Attack on Titan's ending as a whole. I'm curious what you think the message is specifically from Reiner Braun's character. Like his whole character arc, his journey, the purpose of including him into the story. What is his lesson or theme that he delivers to the audience? Something to take away.
Well, yeah. As a warrior, he says as a warrior, but kind of no road left, but the one that leads to the end. Like, sometimes all you can do is keep going. Sometimes there are no good options. Sometimes nothing is fun. Nothing is good. And we think like our goal in life is we as a culture, especially as a Western culture, like our goal in life is to seek joy and seek happiness. And sometimes it's like, no, just seek moving next foot in front of the other. Keep going, seek survival, and if you can, help some other people along the way. But like, he gave up on his own happiness, but rather than and asked to die, but never took that step, which we also took really seriously. Like, we don't want to make light of suicide or use that as a convenient plot point. But he decided, like, oh, I'm not valuing my own life. Rather than take it, I'm just going to keep working for other people. And if I die in the process, or if it doesn't work out for me, that's fine, because I don't think it's going to work out for me anyway, and I don't really care. But I'm going to keep trying for other people. So that, you know, I guess that is the message. Is sometimes it's no good path, bad path, right path, wrong path. It's just keep going. Do whatever, take the next step that's available to you. It might work out in the end. You might actually get a hug from your mom someday that way. But he's the only one that got a happy ending.
Yeah,
again, spoilers, but he's the only one that gets a happy ending. But yeah, it's sometimes it's not about nobility or right and wrong. It's just about who's willing to keep working, keep willing to do the work.
I think something that works well in tandem with this was this should have been the previous question, but it's fine. What do you think is Reiner's biggest struggle as a character, / what does he struggle the most with?
Oh, I think it's definitely his guilt. His guilt, because he thought he was coming in. I mean, he already felt unworthy. That's why he took the mantle. That's why he tried to do this, to get his family's respect. So he's already feeling unworthy. Then he comes in knowing that he's going to betray them, and knowing that he may have to murder them, and thinks that's his job. And, you know, like I said, as a warrior, no road to go. Like, just got to do this thing. It's my job. But then they're nice to him, and he likes them, and he's not expecting to have feelings and kind of to be cared about in a way he maybe even wasn't cared about in his own community. And now he's got this new community and this found family that he has feelings for. So he feels guilty for liking them and supporting them and wanting them to succeed, and also feels guilty because he's betraying them and having to do that. And then when he has to kill Marco, his guilt is so much that he literally divides his reality to be able to deal with that level of guilt. And just, you know, guilt and unworthiness are a lot of things that like a lot of people deal with. And he doesn't think he's worthy of a happy ending. He doesn't think he deserves to survive. He doesn't think he's going to make it to the end. He doesn't think of all the people that died along the way that he should be the one to get there. So, of course, the irony of the universe is that he's the one, again, spoiler, that he's the one that gets there in the end and makes it all the way through. He's never going to feel like that's fair. Like, he looked cool on the boat, like smelling the leather and getting into older women, but he's going to carry that guilt for a really long time.
Okay. That's why it makes sense to me that he went in the Ambassador Corps. He's going to be dedicated to service from now on because he doesn't think he deserves to survive. Okay. A little bit of a lighthearted question
redemption,
based off of that. A little bit goofy, but the exact opposite of that. So, of all the things that he does struggle with, so you can't just list something that he doesn't struggle with. Of all the things that he does struggle with, which one does he struggle with the least?
The easiest struggle.
Yes.
I mean, we don't see a lot of bathing in Attack on Titan, and they can't smell good. Like, he's trying to get up around Krista and Anna, like, he's not going to smell good. And especially when you've transformed into a giant armor-colored Titan and then transfer back into yourself, like, there's going to be aroma issues. And I feel like everybody in the whole show just plays it off really nonchalantly, but I feel like the aroma of Attack on Titan would be kind of horrendous. I was sure there's just bodies everywhere all the time. Yeah, I think it would be really. I think it would be really strong.
And like, teenage boys already stink.
Already, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Also, like, by the time we get into season 4, Reiner looks like he's 40 years old. Like, he looks old and tired, and like, I could play him with the bags under my eye. And then when they finally get through it and they're all on the boat to be an ambassador, you're like, oh yeah, no, he's still 19. He's still like a kid. It just looked like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders because of everything that he was carrying. But like, oh yeah, he's not grown that much. 10 years have not passed. It's actually just a matter of months. Mm-hmm. He just looks older. But yeah, towards the end, Reiner's looking a lot like me because it was a hard year. It was a hard year on old Reiner.
It was a hard decade,
basically. You know.
Yeah, you really played the part. You're actually just cosplaying as Reiner. All right, so another lighthearted question. Well, I'll say there's two versions. One is for specifically Attack on Titan. Was there a line that was just your favorite, or a scene that was just your favorite to voice act? Was that the most fun with?
The reveal was probably the most fun just because I knew it was going to be mind-blowing. It was mind-blowing for me. It was mind-blowing for all of us in there. Like, that was just such a crazy scene. But there are times when you're in the booth and you say a line and you're like, oh, I'm going to sign that a lot. Like, that's going to be a quote that people want on their pops or on their posters or on their stuff. And when he's jumping out of the plane and in the parachute and says, more walls, I'm sick and tired of all these walls. I'm like, I'm going to say that a lot. I'm going to sign that. That's a cool line. That's just a cool, very line commentary on the show. It's a lot of things. I'm like, oh. And that's what made me think, like, he loved Reiner. The creator of the show really loved Reiner to give him, like, he gave him so many important moments. He clearly had an affinity for that character. But so that was one of my favorite lines just because I knew, like, oh, yeah, I'm going to sign that a lot.
You know, it's actually funny. This is a random detail, but I've just noticed this. I think Isayama just liked the blonde-haired characters a lot because Armin, Erevin, and Reiner, they're all three of the most important characters.
Well, and they're so handsome. All three of them are so handsome.
Yeah, he likes the
Maybe blonde is just easier to draw.
True.
Because they show up really well, especially in like nighttime scenes. You can find them. It's easier to
draw. They glow.
That blonde hair really glows, yeah.
But separate from the voice acting, is there? I almost feel like, okay, if you want to pick a Reiner scene, it's fine. I know the bias is there, but it doesn't have to be a Reiner scene. What is just your favorite scene in Attack on Titan, just as a viewer?
Mikasa is probably my favorite character, and there are several times when she goes off on people. There's one where she's literally being carried, like riding in the back and going off on them. Like, can you just get it together? Like, I like any of the scenes where Mikasa bosses up and just is like, I'm sick of all of this. Let's just deal with it. Like, when she has no F's left to give, I think that's great. Trina Nishimura is one of my favorite voice actors, and I think she always does an amazing job. So that's not surprising. But yeah, kind of any Mikasa scene, I would say. I mean, the Marco scene still, like you said earlier, like it still gets me. It still makes me cry. Yeah, there's a lot of Annie. I mean, there's a lot of emotionally impactful scenes. I've been wanting to do a rewatch from the very beginning, just because after now that the finale is all the way done, and I've been doing a lot of press and talking about it, I want to go back and just watch it start to finish one more time to see what I see now that I didn't see then.
Yeah. I still need to rewatch it too. Granted, I watch anime the goofiest way ever, where I like rewind it 50,000 times. So I basically already rewatched it the first time through.
So you rewatched everything
without rewatching.
He'll literally stop and pause, and then he'll like slow it down. Oh my god,
he's the worst to react to anything with. We spend 3 hours per episode.
I didn't miss the details.
I read books. I am such a slow reader. And people are like, oh, do you not like reading? And I'm like, no, I love reading. But I will stop like halfway through a page and think about it and connect it to other things. And then think about other things that makes me think of. And then come back and then like, oh, I'm still on that same page. But yeah, so you watch anime the way I read books.
Yeah, I do same with manga too, where I'm like reading it like slow motion.
Yeah.
But you're enjoying it. That's all that matters.
Exactly.
All right, I saw some other questions. There were some other space questions from Fairy Tale. I'm not trying to take over your questions.
No, please. We
haven't talked about Fairy Tale. We haven't talked about Jellal. He's finally back. 100-year saga. Yay! We waited forever. I think it was like 6 years to finally come back and pick up this story again. And we have just started the dubs. I've done 3 episodes so far of English dub for the 100 years next chapter of that story. So I was very happy about that. Jellal was another one. Starts as a villain, tragic backstory. Then he has to have this conflicted, and he's great when he now is just pining for Urza and trying to be a good guy. But I kind of liked him as a villain, man. I really liked him as a villain. You guys are like, I'm not into Fairy Tale. I don't care.
I've never seen Fairy Tale. I read the manga Eden Zero, and which is the other work that the same author of Fairy Tale did, and
which is also
I just
good.
didn't like it. It wasn't for me, so.
I like Fire Force,
I'm not
which
mad
is
at it.
made by the same
I'm
author.
not mad at it.
I think
And
over
And Fire
Fairy Tale,
Force
I don't.
is Soul Eater.
Oh, you're right.
Fire
You're
Force
right.
is the
Yeah, I
same
get
writer
those
as Soul
two
Eater, which
mixed
is
up all
why
the time.
it makes me happy that because all these kids now that watched Fire Force are now going back to discover Soul Eater, which I think is a super cool OG
Absolutely.
show. If you guys watching haven't seen
I
Soul
just
Eater,
started watching
as
it.
far as like those like OG, like Yu Yu Hakusho, Soul Eater, like some of those original foundational shows. And so I love that people are going back to it. Also because Hunter x Hunter is in the same universe as Yu Yu Hakusho, people are going back and discovering that. And I kind of love that these shows are getting a second life. And then like a 10-year-old comes up to my booth and is like, I love Mifune. And I was like, you weren't born when I did. How do you know what Mifune is? This is great. I love it.
That's adorable.
Yeah, somebody recommended the dub of Soul Eater. They're like, don't watch the sub, watch the dub. It's way better. So watch the dubs of Soul Eater.
Yay.
I just finished
that's
watching
nice to
the
hear.
scene of Mifune and Angela where they meet Tsubaki and
Yeah.
Black Star. So I just finished watching that scene. And I thought it was so good. And I love Mifune's backstory and how he's so protective of Angela and how he's so protective of children and he wants to be a teacher.
Yeah, it's Big Brother. Again, this Big Brother
Yes.
character that I kind of end up
Yes,
playing a lot.
which
I
it
like
seems like you play a lot. It's like Big Brother characters, you know?
Yeah, I like that. I hope that that's like I'm a nice person and directors think of me that way. Because again, I would love to say it all comes down to like the science of our voice and our talent and all those things. But sometimes it's just like, oh, the directors know us, and who comes to their mind when they see a character? And it may be a quality of the voice, or maybe something that character looks like that is like a character we did before, or it has a tonal thing that is similar to that. So, yeah. So I've gotten very fortunate with the casting that I've had. I would never claim that it was a meritocracy, but I've gotten really lucky to be where I was at the right place at the right time.
I think those older anime really like paved the way, you know, like walked so that the newer anime can run, so to speak, especially with Fire Force. I just love the production value of that show. It's just phenomenal the way they're able to create the show. Just as a writer myself, it's want to make my own series.
Yeah, it's a great show, and I love that it has gotten like as popular as it had. Like it blew up really big too, and those kind of, you know, like we call them tentpole titles, but like those bring people into anime. So like when big shows happen, like Jujutsu Kaisen is a really big show. And then that brings people into the world, and then they go find out something else, and they go find out something else. Fire Force was a really big show. My Hero Academia was a big show that was like, oh, I don't really know anime, but I've heard a lot about this, so I'll start here, and then my curiosity will be piqued, and I will go in. So any of those, you know, there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of anime, but every once in a while, one comes through that like peeks through and gets attention to a broader audience and then brings people into the broader world. And Fire Force is one of those.
Yep.
Exactly. I would say the same thing. And you've also done voice acting for Peach Girl, which a lot of girls who like shoujo are starting to go back and like get into. I watched
that was the first shoujo that I did, and that was also the first con I ever went to, was Boston Anime Con. When that debuted, they brought us out, and it was Jeremy Lee's very first con ever and her first role ever, which is amazing because she is now one of the most prolific voice actors in the dub world, and amazing. But yeah, she came, she was like 18, and she brought her mom, and we went to her very first con. It was adorable, and getting to walk around, and it was I love you before it was loser.
Yep.
So she picked wrong. I'm sorry, she picked wrong.
I love it. I think each of us have enough time for maybe one more big question, then maybe one more serious question. So Kamui, if you wanted to ask your next question.
I'll do, just like, this is more like just generally you questions than like voice actor questions. So I'll ask two. One is, of all the anime you voice act in, which do you think was just like...
Hey, you said it was a you question that wasn't
take out your
anime.
bias about which is most popular. which is the one that you think was your favorite show to watch? The ones you voice acted.
I will say Psychopass. Season 1 of Psychopass, and then the new Psychopass thing is probably like, if I had had nothing to do with it, I had never acted in it or anything, that was the one that I would still have enjoyed start to finish, just because it's got a sci-fi bent to it, and I really enjoyed it.
Okay. The next one. This
also
requires
Drifters.
you to have
Drifters
seen.
was really cool. Okay, say that again.
So for this next one, it requires you to have seen a show you haven't voice acted. But what's your favorite anime that you're not in?
I really, really wanted to be in Chainsaw Man. I like Chainsaw Man, and I really, really wanted to be in it, and I enjoyed it. Jujutsu Kaisen, I also think is really, I like that show a lot. It's just fun. But all the ones back in the day, like Naruto and Bleach and Vampire Hunter D, like the things that were on late night Cartoon Swim in the early 90s, like those are the shows that and some of them are still going, but yeah, some of those are ones that I really like. Space Dandy, I'm a big Space Dandy fan. I think I was in that as like one scene something, but I'm not in it really, but I really like Space Dandy and think that's fun.
Okay.
Stay dandy, baby.
So for my two
Ian
questions,
Sinclair, anything Ian Sinclair in is good to watch.
Definitely. We should get him on the podcast. He's good too.
You should. He's great.
Yeah. So, okay.
He gives good pod.
Absolutely. You mentioned Naruto, and that's like the whole thing we're centered around. Basically, that's our favorite show. So I'm curious, if you just had the chance, the opportunity, you just get to choose whoever you want. Knowing how Naruto turns out, who would you choose to voice?
I don't know. All right. I'm going to think. You know my voice. You know all those characters. Who should I voice?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I got to think for a second.
Yeah.
Who can I take a decent stab at?
I would say Toby Rama.
I could see it.
Hashirama's brother,
I'm trying to remember if I know who Toby Rama, who voiced the English. Because some of these people I've actually gotten to meet because they come to command, like even the people that were like old school Naruto like 20 years ago, I've gotten to meet some of them. I'm trying to think if there's any, and I think that would be fun. I would go back and do a revoice of those. Although I don't want anyone to go do revoicing my stuff, so I don't want to revoice anyone.
Fair enough.
I feel like that's mine.
Okay, so this is just coincidence. So
yeah, there was a chance
so
they did a Black Clover. Go ahead.
I think so. Based off the, like I said, I've only seen you do Reiner, and I've just heard you guys talk about Stain to come to this conclusion. And it seems like you might do a lot of morally gray characters, and you've got one that has the plot twist, the reveal he's actually the traitor. So one option that comes to mind could be my icon, Obito.
Obito, yeah, okay.
Or you could like other characters voice. I feel like are in that gray area.
Yeah,
so like
he could do like
here. Pain.
Yeah.
But I think Obito, honestly, might be my
Obito would be the fun one to do again, because I do like those conflicted anti-hero, morally conflicted bad guy. But
the voice actor who does Toby Rama is Jamieson Price. I don't know if you know him, but
I don't. But again, that was a long time ago. So.
Yep. So yeah.
Well, we'll get him on the podcast too.
Do it.
I want to ask a question from chat really quick. Just a silly question. It's my other question. Would you be the voice actor for the glorious goat Himawari, Naruto's young daughter from the Boruto series? So like they unironically, they approach you and they're like, we will pay you to do this voice if you will just do it. Would you accept the offer?
Yes, if I could just do it in this voice right here. If she just sounded like this the whole time. Like I wouldn't, there's no little girl, there's no goat, there's just literally this voice right here. Yes, I would love that.
Love it. Okay.
You know, honestly,
I love voices that don't sound
like that.
I love the characters that don't look like they don't sound like they look. Like sometimes you're like, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what that character would look like. But sometimes when it's like a cute little puffy rainbow and it's got a voice like this, I kind of love that. I kind of love going against type.
Okay. Cam?
I wanted to ask about Kogami. Like he does the way he goes about. Okay, if you haven't seen it, spoilers. The way he goes about catching Makishima, like he's worried. He's so worried about like not being able to find like a challenging person to go after again. I was wondering if like does he find a challenge like a challenge again? Like do you think that's gonna make his psychopath like go up? If he like loses his
Um,
purpose in life?
I have seen that is a concern that causes him to make the choices he makes in seasons 2 and 3 that you haven't seen yet.
Okay.
He has to go away for a while and find other things to do out of the civil system in order to feel like he's atoning and doing the right thing. He's got a hero complex too. He feels like he's got to be protecting people, and he goes off to do that. And then in the movie, he realizes that he has to come back and deal with the civil system. Finally.
Okay.
So yes, and no. He he does not turn terrible, and he does not become the
Makishima
the
2.0.
villain.
Okay, good.
But Makishima actually is voiced by another Dallas actor who went to Yale School of Drama, believe it or not.
He's so
Organ,
good,
a
too.
Brilliant theater actor, and did that and was great and was well received, and then kind of went away and was like, I'm just going to focus on theater for a little while, and now he's come back, luckily, to anime and is starting to do a lot more voice roles, and it's great. But yeah, Alex Organ, check him out. He's
Okay.
real good. He's real good at his
Okay.
job. He and David Matrenga both went to the Yale School of Drama.
Oh wow, that's
Matrenga,
so
who
cool.
plays Todoroki in My Hero and is Bertolt in Attack on Titan, is both Yale School of Drama trained. I was not.
Yeah, but I mean,
One
you're
of
still
these
a great
things is
voice
not like
actor.
the others.
Reiner is my favorite character. I think you're such a great voice actor. I've loved everything that I've watched that you've done. So yeah.
Well, thank you so much. That is lovely to hear. Thank all of you guys for having me on and asking questions. This is cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
How many
We really
people?
appreciate your time.
How many people are going to see this someday? Millions.
Billions.
That's right.
Hopefully, that's the goal.
We have asked every other voice actor, just like it's a final outro question. So if you were able to say, and I guess we'll just apply this for Reiner, if you were able to tell Reiner yourself, if you were able to tell him one thing, what would you tell him?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Thank you.
You
It's a recurring question.
deserve to be happy.
Hmm.
You're allowed to make choices for your own happiness, not just for everybody else's happiness. You're allowed to be happy no matter why you think you're not worthy. I say this to anyone who's watching. You deserve to be happy. If you think the only choices here are things that don't make you happy, then you're making someone else's choices. You can make choices based on your own happiness, not what the government or your parents or anybody tries to make you do. You deserve to be happy. If you want to do things for the sake of others, that's one thing. That's a choice you're making. But Ryder didn't think he had choices. You have choices. You deserve to be happy. You're worthy of love. I would say the same thing to Jellal. I would say the same thing to a lot of these characters. Like, you deserve to be happy. Unless you're
Kogami.
Doflamingo. And then you're terrible. You don't deserve to be happy.
You deserve
Not
to
you,
be
but not
miserable.
Hey, he's the one who's the happy.
Everyone, but not you.
Love it. Yeah, I guess that's a perfect note to end on. A very positive and
Perfect.
heartwarming message. Thank you, Rob, for coming on. I do want to say, for everyone watching, there's a link in the description below if you want to follow Rob on Instagram. That's social media that he keeps up with, I suppose. So
Absolutely. Or there's a
Beautiful
Facebook fan
pictures.
page, but no one under 40 does Facebook, but there's a fan page. And also, you asked me before kindly, and I didn't put it all together, but I will be in St. Petersburg, Florida at Pop & Sons in September, the end of September, and then I'll be at New York Comic Con at the $7 Pop booth. So if you're in New York or St. Petersburg, come by and see me.
awesome. Thank you, Rob, for coming on.
All right, thanks, guys. Thanks so much for having me on. And thanks to everyone who's sending questions.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Bye-bye.
All right. Pretty cool.
Bro, honestly,
I love him.
I don't want to say this live, but he might have been our best voice actor so far.
That was good. That was definitely really
love
good.
him.
Like he was the best thing is like I think he was the most enthusiastic out of all of them. So I mean, granted, it's tough because a lot of them have been very like positive, enthusiastic. But he was the most like us, Udi, like energetic, talking about ADHD. They was like, bro, this guy he fits right in.
Definitely an extrovert, man.
I feel that because I feel like the other three we've had on have also been just like that. So it's like comparing a 9 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10.
I know
Good
that.
energy, bro.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
They've all
he
been
gave
great.
us the most amount of time. He does win in that regard. He was the most willing to stay.
I love it. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll keep this podcast short at the very least. That was amazing. Thank you, Space. You're amazing. We've been your number one hyperactive knucklehead podcasters. This has been Rob, and more voice actors on the way, probably. None scheduled, but I'll work on it. So, if you have any suggestions for voice actor, leave it in the comments below, and we'll see. Thanks for watching, and over and out.